Imagine you have a state-of-the-art, beautifully engineered sports car just sitting right there in your garage.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right. Absolute perfection in motion. The engine is a masterpiece. The aerodynamics are flawless. But instead of ever turning the key, instead of taking it out on the open road to see what it can actually do, you spend all your time bragging to the neighbors about how incredibly well you can parallel park a clunky, broken-down tractor.
That sounds completely absurd.
It really does. But, when it comes to language and culture and what a society ultimately chooses to celebrate, this is exactly the kind of paradox we are living out. And welcome to today's deep dive, by the way.
Thanks. It's an unforgettable mental image, honestly, and it captures the mechanics of what we're looking at today perfectly. Because today's deep dive is really an exploration of how our linguistic priorities act as a mirror.
A mirror for, our cultural priority.
Exactly. They reveal our deepest cultural priorities. We're looking at this fascinating phenomenon from our sources today, really asking why a society will actively seek external validation by mastering the flaws of a foreign language while, leaving its own indigenous, meticulously engineered linguistic excellence completely hidden in the garage.
It's wild. And to really get into the mechanics of this, we have to start by looking at a massive, universally recognized cultural phenomenon, which is the English spelling bee.
Oh, yeah. A classic.
Right. We see it broadcast on national television. A kid steps up to the microphone, correctly spells some wildly obscure word, the confetti falls, they hand over the giant trophy, and that child is universally hailed as, a certified genius.
They really are.
It is treated as the absolute pinnacle of intellectual achievement.
It is, and it's celebrated with immense sincerity. People genuinely love it. But if we pause and kind of deconstruct what is actually happening in that moment, what is actually being praised, we find something incredibly ironic in the source material.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to understand the spelling bee, you have to understand the fundamental structure of the English language. English is an undeniable global powerhouse, right?
Well, sure.
It is the language of international commerce, of science, diplomacy. But structurally speaking, mechanically, its spelling system is a historical train wreck.
A train wreck that we've all just, collectively agreed to ignore.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because English is filled with these deep arbitrary inconsistencies between its spelling and its pronunciation. Think about the fact that words like through, tough, though, and trough.
Oh, man.
Right? They all end in OUG, but they sound completely different. Or that read rhymes with lead, and read rhymes with lead, but read doesn't rhyme with lead.
My brain just short-circuited a little bit tracking that, but you're absolutely right. It's total chaos.
It's chaotic because English spelling wasn't designed by a single logical architect. It's the result of centuries of historical accidents. You had the Great Vowel Shift, which changed how words sounded, but the spelling stayed exactly the same because the printing press had just been invented.
So it basically just locked the old spellings in place.
Exactly. And then you have words borrowed from French, Latin, Greek, German, and they all keep their original spelling conventions.
So when a kid stands on that stage and spells a word like pharaoh correctly, what are they actually doing? Because they aren't demonstrating a deep understanding of linguistic logic, right?
Not at all.
Pharaoh is spelled that way because it's an English adaptation of a Greek and Latin translation of a Hebrew word that originally came from ancient Egyptian. The spelling completely defies modern phonetic logic.
Right, and that is the crux of the spelling bee. Success in these massive competitions is frequently just a test of recalling arbitrary conventions. You're not proving that you understand the underlying structure of language.
You're just proving you have a good memory.
Yes. You are proving that you have successfully memorized the chaotic historical accidents of how certain words happen to be spelled. It requires an incredible amount of rote memorization, sure, but it is fundamentally a test of static recall.
Okay, wait. Let me push back for just a second because I want to make sure we're contextualizing this fairly for you listening. Are we making the argument here that English is a bad language? Or that putting the effort into mastering it is somehow a misguided waste of time?
No.
Because in today's interconnected global economy, that feels like a pretty extreme stance.
Right, and that is a crucial distinction to make. The source material is absolutely not arguing against learning English. English opens vital, undeniable doors. It is an incredibly valuable tool for navigating the modern world.
Okay, good. So what is the actual issue then?
What's fascinating here is that the paradox isn't about the utility of the English. The paradox is that what we are throwing massive parades for isn't the creative application or the utility of the language. We are celebrating the memorization of its flaws.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We have built this massive, globally televised infrastructure of celebration around the ability to memorize inconsistency.
Which brings us to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. If English spelling is the broken down tractor that we're showing off to the neighbors, what does the sports car look like?
Right.
Like, what does a language built on actual logic look like? And this is where the sources turn to Telugu, which is highlighted as one of the most perfectly phonetic languages in the entire world.
The contrast in mechanics here is just staggering. Telugu is a Dravidian language, and its script is what linguists call an abugida, or an alpha syllabary.
Okay, break that down for us a bit.
Basically, it means the script and the sounds maintain a brilliantly logical one-to-one relationship.
So unlike English, where the letter C might sound like an S in city or K in cat in Telugu, a symbol does one thing and one thing only.
Yes, exactly. In Telugu, there are no guessing games. There are no invisible letters, no silent I's at the end of a word, changing the vowel sound before it. Words are pronounced exactly as they are written, and they are written exactly as they are pronounced.
That is so refreshing.
Isn't it? Every consonant symbol has an inherent vowel sound, and if you want to change that vowel, you add a specific, consistent diacritic mark. The logic is built directly into the phonetic architecture of the language itself.
You know, here's where it gets really interesting. If we think about this in terms of technology, if English spelling is like trying to execute a messy, chaotic string of code where half the commands are outdated and the rest trigger random errors,
Right.
Telugu is like pure, beautifully written open source code. What you see is exactly what you get. The syntax is flawless.
It is a system designed for maximum clarity and elegance, which naturally leads to a rather amusing realization.
Oh, what's that?
You could never actually hold a Telugu spelling bee
Wait, really? Why not?
because it would be incredibly boring.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, if a child can hear a Telugu word and they know the Telugu alphabet, they can spell the word. There is no trick. There's no historical trapdoor. The language is so logically constructed that the very concept of a spelling bee is just obsolete.
That is wild. The system is so perfect, it literally eliminates the need for the competition altogether. But I mean, that leads to the glaring absence at the center of this dynamic.
Yeah.
Despite possessing this incredible logical elegance, there are no massive arenas filled with people cheering for a student's mastery of Telugu.
None. There is no global infrastructure of celebration for Telugu vocabulary, its grammar, its etymology, or its profound literary traditions. All of that enthusiasm, all of that prestige is reserved exclusively for navigating the illogical quirks of English.
So if a spelling bee is just static recall, just accessing a database in your brain to retrieve the spelling of Pharaoh, what does it actually look like to test true dynamic linguistic mastery?
Right. What's the alternative?
Exactly. If we aren't testing spelling, what do we test? And this brings us to the highest echelon of Telugu intellectual tradition, a practice called Avadhanam. And I have to say, looking at the mechanics of this in the sources, it is one of the most mind-bending cognitive feats I have ever encountered.
It really is.
Yeah.
Avadhanam is a classical, highly sophisticated demonstration of memory, creativity, linguistic mastery, and, honestly, intellectual agility. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's important to understand how this works because it completely redefines what we consider a feat of genius.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does a typical Avadhanam look like?
Let's look at the most common format, which is called Ashtavadhanam. Ashta meaning 8. You have one performer, the Avatani, seated on a stage. Facing them are 8 scholars known as the Prachakas, or questioners.
Okay.
And the performer's task is to compose beautiful, mathematically precise poetry in their mind in real time.
I mean, that already sounds hard, composing strict poetry mentally in front of an audience.
Right, but that's just the baseline. The 8 scholars aren't just sitting there passively listening. They are actively throwing complex constraints and distractions at the performer simultaneously.
Okay, wait, what kind of constraints are we talking about here?
Let's go through a few of them to really grasp the mechanics. One scholar might demand what's called a datapadi. This means they give the performer 4 completely unrelated, often ridiculous words.
Like what?
Let's say they are the names of 4 modern software companies, and they demand that the performer compose a classical verse about the Mahabharata, but seamlessly integrate those 4 modern words into the specific meter of the poem.
That's insane. So you're forcing a thematic collision. You have to write an ancient epic using modern corporate jargon, and it has to rhyme and fit a strict rhythmic structure.
Exactly. But while the performer is working on that, another scholar jumps in with a Nishidakshari.
Which is?
This scholar asks the performer to compose a poem, letter by letter. But as the performer speaks the first letter, the scholar immediately forbids the use of the most obvious next letter.
Wait, they ban letters mid-sentence.
Yes, mid-word even. If the performer starts a word, the scholar will guess where they're going and ban the letter needed to finish that word.
You're kidding.
No, I'm serious. The performer has to instantly pivot, mentally scanning their entire vocabulary for a synonym or a different grammatical structure that fits the strict poetic meter, all without breaking rhythm.
It's like navigating a maze where the walls are constantly shifting while you're running.
And we haven't even talked about the distractions yet.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. While the performer is juggling these shifting poetic compositions, another scholar's entire job is a prastuta prasangam, meaning meaningless conversation.
Okay, so they're just heckling them.
Basically, this scholar will literally interrupt the performer with jokes, absurd questions, or random philosophical debates just to break their concentration. The performer is required to answer them wittily, in poetry, and then immediately return to the complex poems they were building without losing their place.
And isn't there something with a bell, too, in the reading?
Yes, the Avadhanam. Another scholar will randomly ring a bell throughout the entire multi-hour performance.
Okay.
And remember, the performer is not allowed to write anything down. At the very end of the event, after composing multiple poems under immense hostile constraints and constant distraction, the performer must recite every single poem they composed completely from memory and then state exactly how many times the bell was rung.
That is, comparing that to a spelling bee is like comparing a game of tic-tac-toe to a grandmaster playing chess blindfolded against 8 different opponents at the same time.
That is the perfect analogy. If a spelling bee is static RAM, just looking up a file on a hard drive, Avadhanam is a test of your CPU. It requires dynamic, real-time intellectual agility. You're manipulating language, complex mathematical prosody, and memory simultaneously, all under deliberate pressure.
It is multitasking at an absolute genius level. You are quite literally witnessing the human brain operating at its maximum creative and analytical capacity.
And this brings us right back to the core paradox. This profound achievement of Telugu culture, this staggering display of intellectual brilliance, is completely localized. It is rarely showcased on the global stage.
Right, like we don't have massive arenas filled with confetti for a student who can compose original Telugu poetry while avoiding banned letters and counting bell rings.
No, we really don't. The paradox is that the vastly lesser cognitive feat memorizing the letters in Pharaoh is globally celebrated. The exponentially more complex feat remains in the shadows. And this isn't just about entertainment, It's about what we are signaling to the next generation about what actually constitutes intelligence.
So what does this all mean? Let's dig into that signaling. Because when you look at the emotional response within society, it is incredibly revealing. When a Telugu-speaking kid wins an English spelling bee, they're immediately hailed as a massive intellectual symbol. The pride is immense. The news coverage is wall-to-wall.
Absolutely. But when someone achieves mastery of Telugu literature or grammar or these classical arts, it receives comparatively little attention. The emotional investment is completely skewed. And that blindness comes with the significant danger.
What is the danger? Is the real tragedy here just that we aren't throwing a big enough parade for Telugu? Or is it that we're actively programming our kids to believe that smart only counts if it's validated by a Western standard?
It's definitely the latter. It is much deeper than just parades. The danger is the internal psychological landscape we are building for our children. When we pour all our celebratory energy into mastering the quirks of a foreign language and neglect our own literary heritage, we are actively programming our kids to believe that smart and successful only count if they are measured by that Western standard.
Right.
We are teaching them that indigenous excellence is inherently inferior to external validation.
It's a crisis of linguistic prestige. If the only time you see your community unequivocally celebrate pure intelligence is when it involves the English language, you internalize the idea that your native language is just for, casual domestic use. It's just for talking to your grandmother.
Exactly. And if Telugu degrades into just a tool for casual conversation, we lose the ability to access the higher echelons of the culture. The ultimate challenge isn't whether children can continue to win English spelling bees. They clearly can. They've mastered that broken-down tractor.
Right.
The greater challenge is whether future generations will know enough about Telugu to even comprehend why Avadhanam exists.
Wow. Yeah, if you only know enough Telugu to ask what's for dinner, you can't possibly appreciate the genius of someone seamlessly weaving modern vocabulary into ancient poetic meters while avoiding banned letters. You lose the context for the brilliance.
You lose the keys to the sports car. You know it's in the garage, you know your ancestors built it, but you can't even get inside to see the engine anymore. You can't appreciate why it deserves the same admiration we so readily bestow upon achievements recognized by the West.
So how do we fix this? Is the answer to just pull kids out of spelling bees and reject English entirely? Because that brings us back to the utility problem. English is still necessary.
And that is why the source calls for a vital balance. The solution is not rejection. We must learn to value both equally appreciating English as a practical international tool that opens doors, while fiercely protecting and proudly showcasing the richness of Telugu as a profound cultural and intellectual treasure.
So a society that celebrates spelling a confusing English word correctly should be at least equally proud of the student who can manipulate the flawless logic of Telugu to compose original poetry. That has to be the baseline.
It has to be. Because until that equilibrium is reached, we will continue to live with this curious, slightly tragic contradiction. We will be a society dedicating thousands of hours to mastering the illogical historical accidents of a foreign language, while remaining completely unaware of the staggering intellectual depth embedded in our own traditions.
It really makes you evaluate where you direct your awe. So to quickly summarize the journey we've been on today, we started by looking at the English spelling bee, realizing that while English is a vital global tool, its spelling is a chaotic product of historical accidents, and mastering it is essentially an exercise in rote memorization.
Right.
Then we contrasted that with Telugu, a language of pure phonetic elegance where the logic is built right into the script. And finally, we explored Avadhanam, a staggering display of dynamic, real-time intellectual agility that far surpasses the cognitive demands of a spelling bee, yet remains largely uncelebrated on the global stage.
It's the ultimate paradox.
We are ignoring the meticulously engineered sports car of indigenous excellence to seek validation for driving the clunky tractor of foreign inconsistencies.
And analyzing this paradox leaves us with a critical question, one that goes far beyond just language or spelling bees.
That's right. And that's exactly what we want to leave you with today.
As you go about your week, we want you to think about this. If our linguistic priorities truly act as a mirror for our cultural priorities, what other native treasures are out there? Whether that is in local art, in traditional problem solving, in agriculture, or even in community building. What else might we currently be ignoring in our daily lives simply because it doesn't come with a globally recognized standardized trophy?